In this and the next part, we are also fulfilling an old request, as many of you, and many times have asked us to deal with fighting dogs, to talk about their development, character, history, and also why they have evolved throughout history in almost all regions where human societies and culture exist. Before we get started, we would like to emphasize that the staff of DogCastTV does not approve or support any forms of dog fightings in any way, and that it will not change in the future. The reason we are still talking about this topic is that dog fights in arenas have been a defining part of canine history for centuries, and partly because there are a lot of misconceptions and misinformation circulate on the net about either fighting dog breeds or about the history of these animal struggles. In these two parts, the first part is what you are watching now. We will deal mainly with 3 cultures and regions, as these 3 represent most clearly the reasons why dog fightings developed and took place at all and why fighting dog breeds have been formulated and bred. We deal first with the Western civilization, but mainly with Anglo-Saxon countries, then with Japan and finally with the Eurasian steppes, where the ancestors of the large-bodied shepherd dogs known today have developed. 1. Dog fights and fighting dogs in the Western civilization. In that part of the world what we tend to classify today as the Western civilization, it is undoubtedly true that animal fights and dog fights were present in almost every age, enough to think of the arenas of ancient Rome, or to think of the traditions of the Germanic or Celtic tribes. There is also no doubt that in the modern era they reached their peak in the Anglo-Saxon world, where animal fights were used to entertain the average people and crowds, which were prohibited by the 1835 Cruelty to Animals Act. Although this law also outlawed dog-to-dog fights, in a peculiar way, it was precisely because of this act that the settlement of dog fights became a real business. Illegal though it was much more difficult for authorities to crack down on than bull baiting, as it required far less space. The popularity in quotation marks brought changes. While previously the ancient, or Old English bulldog was used primarily for dog fights, bull and bear baiting, their fight was no longer so interesting to the crowd as they were persistent and selected primarily to capture, pin and hold down the other animal and not to move out a lot and not to maul. In addition, as industrial revolution speeded up, bigger and bigger crowds moved to fast-developing cities, where smaller dogs could be kept in smaller places, at less cost. Thus began the mixing of ancient bulldogs and smaller, primarily rat-catching terrier types, and the development of the first bull and terrier type of dogs. These dogs, due to their smaller stature, speed, tremendous physique, and biting power, have become the stars of the dog arenas. In addition to these, however, they had another quality that made them particularly popular, and that was their human friendliness and neutrality with respect to people, as partly bred specifically to not redirect their aggression toward their human handlers. These dogs often lived with their families and many children in a small place, and they could not be aggressive in the arena with the intervening handler or helper who showed such signs. These dogs were put away in a very short time, which at that time usually meant a fast axe blow. Incidentally, this phenomenon also explains a fact that is misunderstood and not accepted by many people, which greatly characterizes the descendants of former bull and terrier fighters, like the American Bulldogs, the Staffordshire Bull Terriers, or the American Pit Bull Terriers. Namely, that these dog breeds, who were selected for tough fights, and who are in most cases are quite dominant and combative, or dog reactive, were over other dogs, definitely accept their owners and their families and love them to the point of admiration. In summary, the primary reason for the widespread dog fighting in late modern England and then the United States was initially to entertain the masses and then, later on, to build on the business interests that underlined it, like they were organizing gamblings, operating arenas, breeding, selling, etc. Fortunately, these days, these dog fights has been banned in almost every Western countries, although to this day we can still hear about illegal dog fights and their organizers. In contrast to the Western world, in Japan, quite different reasons led to the development of fighting dogs and dog fights. 2. Fighting dogs and dog fights in Japan. In Japan, researchers who deal with the past and development of dog fights always mention the name of Chasukebe Motochika, who was a samurai lord living on the island of Shikoku in the 16th century. Motochika, who, according to historians, for the first time in Japanese history began to promote and practice dog fights on his territories among his men seriously. With showing dogs fighting to his samurais, he he primarily sought to maximize the fighting spirit of his own men with these struggles and thus created a tradition that is present in Japanese society even today. These fights were fought at that time by Akita Inus and other similar ancient Japanese dog breeds, and then, partly as a consequence of a coincidence, the peak product of Japanese fighting dog breeding, the alleged prince of fighting dogs, the Tosa Inu, was created, with whom unbelievable but true to this day, and even today, official and legal dog fights are fought in Japan, which is partly a national sport for the Japanese people. Why has this happened? How was the Tosa Inu formed? And in what respects the Japanese dog fighting and fighting dog culture differs significantly from European and American ways? We'll talk about it in the next part. We will also talk about the role of dog fighting in the Eurasian steppes, where the ancestors of today's shepherd dogs developed. If you want to be notified immediately about the second part, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell button as well. Thank you very much for your attention.